Welcome back to AFTV, everyone. Welcome to the full-time show. As you can see, you've got the headphones, which is because the FANZONE call is open. That means you guys can get into the AFTV app. Go hit the link in the description below. It's also pinned there in the chat, and you can come join us and give us your thoughts to break down a really disappointing day. Look, Arsenal have lost 1-0 at Goodison Park. It wasn't good enough. Sure, the stats that you can see on screen might say we've had plenty of shots, might say we've had a lot of the ball. We didn't do anything. I don't even think XG as a stat would kind of measure how good some of those openings were for Everton, some of the chances they had. We absolutely deserved to lose that game, which is really disappointing, Laurie. But we need to try in the next 15 minutes break down and understand why it went the way it did, and then look to, how it can improve. Get the thoughts of everyone later. Help me out here.
Well, it's very simple, James. I'll offer you 3 words: new manager bounce. Listen, it was always going to be a difficult game today, and again, I'm not making excuses for Arsenal, but it was going to be a difficult day today. Away from home, early kickoff. Everton with a new manager that we know his qualities. He's renowned for getting teams organised and structured, working hard, and a combination of all those things guaranteed it was going to be a difficult game. Got to say though, I am disappointed in Arsenal. I thought we would have coped with it better, but unfortunately we didn't. And I think that goal that they scored kind of epitomised a lot what was wrong with our performance today. It was disappointing to see the captain, Martin Odegaard, and I'm not digging him out, but I have to just be honest and say that the way he was literally brushed aside while Tarkowski headed it into the net was disappointing.
Yeah. So. Okay, you say new manager bounce, but that might explain Everton's improved performance. And look, just for a second here, because we always want to be fair, Everton played really well, and credit to them. I thought actually throughout the whole 90, they showed steel when they needed to in their box, and they actually showed far more quality around our box. So credit to them. They fully deserved the 3 points. But new manager bounce can explain why their level went up. Why was our level so flat? Why could we not do anything to really cause them any problems or panic in the final third?
Well, if you looked at Mikel Arteta's face at the end of that game, he looked a bit crestfallen. I think that's probably a question he's going to be asking himself today, because I'm pretty sure all week he would have been saying to them, listen, we're going up there on Saturday morning. It's going to be difficult. We've got to rise to the occasion. We cannot afford to be bullied. We've got to try and impose ourselves on the game and then play our game to win the game. But it just didn't happen, man. I mean, even in the first half, I think Everton had 2-3 clear chances. They could have been 3-1 up. I mean, I know we had a possible goal line cleared off the line, was it?
Yeah, the Saka effort. Yeah, that was quite good effort.
So that could have been 3-1 at half time in chances. I just think, listen, it pains me to say this, and I don't say this lightly, but if I'm being honest, I think Everton wanted a little bit more than us today, which is disappointing when you consider that we're going for a title.
I think sometimes we focus so much on these intangibles, like who wanted it more. Sometimes it's very clear. Sometimes you can just see, for example, we won the North London derby. You could see that Arsenal were running harder. They were tackling. They were doing everything better than Tottenham, and you could see that they wanted to be more focused. They wanted to show more energy. They wanted to do all those things. Today, I think, yes, Everton wanted it a lot and showed a lot of fight and really stepped up for the crowd, for the new manager, all that. And I think that's where the new manager bounce thing comes into play. But on the Arsenal end, I know everyone probably wants me to come here and just say we were poor, we were shit, we were this, we were that. But if you'll break it down a little bit more analytically than that, I actually thought for a lot of the game, Arsenal were able to make their way through to the final third. And then at that point, they showed absolutely no quality whatsoever. I don't think people talk about dominating midfield. Yeah, physically, Everton were able to get to us and stop us. But think how many times Odegaard was able to get it in that final third of the edge of the area and pick someone out. Xhaka did. He should have shot and he gave it to Trossard. This isn't me painting out the game to say that Arsenal played well. They didn't. They played terribly because of the fact they actually got into those areas and then couldn't do anything to hurt Everton.
Yeah, you're right. Although the overriding thing for me is, and listen, I'm not really disputing anything you said there, but I just look at it and I just think that in those crucial moments, in those 50-50s, some of the aerial duels we saw, more often than not, it was an Everton player that emerged with the ball. That's true,
yeah.
And I just think that over the course of 90 minutes, these things do make a difference. And, I spoke about it earlier. You look at the goal where Tarkowski's literally pushing Odegaard aside to make room for him to slot the ball past Ramsdale. To me, that kind of epitomised the game.
Let's talk about the goal then. So it is Tarkowski. It is Odegaard at the back post. They've been swinging it to the back post all day. We didn't really feel like we'd learnt from that because essentially, everyone had their man to pick up. We were bullied all over the pitch. I mean, when you look at the players they've got, Cody, Tarkowski, Onana, Doucouré, I guess Idrissa Gueye is not the tallest, Calvert-Lewin, there were quite a few threats there to deal with. And it's surprising that Odegaard was given the job of dealing with Tarkowski.
Yeah, although Odegaard's not a small guy, is he?
Well, he's not tall.
He's not tall, but
he's just sort of
he's not pint-sized, put it that way. And he is the captain. I was a little bit disappointed with that goal, if I'm being honest. But I don't want to dig him out because he didn't play well. But he was amongst a number of our better players who, for whatever reason, didn't have a good game today. So I guess that's why Mikel Arteta gets paid the money he gets paid and holds the position that he holds, because he'll have to find an answer as to why we were that poor today. But listen, it's not the end of the world. And one thing I don't want to see is I don't want to see people scapegoating Jorginho or Vieira today.
So this super chat from Don Robbie Deathster says the isolation of wingers is becoming an issue, especially Martinelli, who misses Jesus, but I can't be asked for the reactionary fans who are going to scapegoat Jorginho anyway. Come on, he says, come on, you Spurs, because he wants them to get a result. Diraj says, with Zinni without Jesus, Martinelli looks deprived of an overlap. Sometimes we should play Tierney for that. Also, so often Ramsdale looks shaky against corners, but I think he sort of did his job, Ramsdale, really today.
I'm not putting any blame on Ramsdale
today. So the goal's disappointing to concede. There'd been a threat from set pieces. I think a real issue as well was when the subs came on, Jorginho and Trossard for Partey and Martinelli. I'll hold my hands up. I sort of thought, fine, whatever. Yeah. Because at that point, we were having a little bit more of the ball. Thought Martinelli was having a poor game. I don't think Partey was having anywhere near his best game. But we certainly lost a little bit of presence in the midfield. I don't think it was a great cameo from Jorginho. Not going to scapegoat him. He's not the reason we lost. I think you could look at loads of players who didn't turn up today. But I don't think it was a great cameo. And I think if you're not going to be technically brilliant on the ball, then the fullback is at least presence, and Jorginho didn't really have that to offer. So I don't think the subs did a lot. Trossard was maybe marginally better than Martinelli, but they didn't really do much to help, did they?
You know what I'm going to say?
I thought Vieira looked quite bright when he came on.
He did okay. He didn't. Listen, to me, this game today was not a game for Jorginho. In many ways, I kind of see Jorginho, he's going to have his better effects when we're actually winning and we're trying to shore the game up, and then he comes on, if you see what I mean, rather than today we had to chase it a little bit and he wasn't quite.
But I would have thought with his passing range, that was perfect for him. He could come on and try and unpick a lock and maybe try to find a pass in a tight space. But
possibly,
I thought it looked a tricky one for him to come into because they were swarming midfield, and he just didn't have the kind of time I think he'd want. And he showed a couple moments in tight spaces, but that was it. I'm really scraping the bottom of the barrel. It wasn't a brilliant cameo at all. And
I don't want to see the fans scapegoat him. It was not his fault today. As a team, we weren't at the races. Who had a good game today for us?
You're going to think I'm crazy. There were a few moments where they didn't pick up the runners in the box, and that was poor. But I thought Gabriel and Saliba were asked a lot of questions and answered most of them.
You're right.
I think they stepped and Ramsdale. I think those three. Yeah, like I said, there were a few crosses. There were a few crosses into the box where Calvin-Lewin's got a free header. You're thinking, oh wow, what is going on there? Don't get me wrong, that is poor. But I also thought some of the physical battles that they kind of stepped up to. Okay, they did fine, but otherwise, Saka I thought was bright. Saka was the only one who looked like doing something. I thought everyone else was poor. I thought Odegaard and Xhaka, their decision making poor. Thought Trossard a bit better than Martinelli, who was poor. Nketiah, I think, didn't have a lot to feed off, but then we know that the striker in this Arsenal system has to try and make things happen for themselves. He made one shot happen for himself. And there was, I guess, one bit in the second half where he squared it to Odegaard. Do you see what I mean? Arsenal had little moments where maybe 3 or maybe 5 across the game where you think, okay, but a little bit more conviction, that could have been a goal. That's why it's a strange one. This wasn't Arsenal doing... I guess they really
and that's why I say, James, that when I
made
the reference to the new manager bounce, I just felt that today Everton it's almost as if they dragged us down to their level got us in a bit of a dogfight and just came out the other end the winners. It's a scrappy game.
If I'm to say that in a way that gives them more credit, I think it's that they made it, they killed the fluidity of the game, and they made, especially in that second half, they made it quite scrappy.
They did.
And that's how we kind of fell into that.
Yeah.
But I thought they played very well. I thought they were happy to keep the ball at times. I thought they pressed very high. This wasn't just a park the bus job they did. I thought they were very good. 40 side says, Zinchenko drifting into midfield isolates Martinelli. He has no outball, literally has to beat the man with pace or pass back. So I agree with that. But White doesn't do it too differently to Zinchenko. I know Zinchenko really comes into midfield, so it feels the same, but Saka has the same isolation job. The difference is that Saka, I think he's more mature than Martinelli with his decision making, and so I think Saka knows when he's found that yard that's going to help him beat the man, or whether he's got to come inside or combine with the player, Odegaard or White, who's come in field to help him. I think Martinelli's decision making is where I'm left most disappointed, and with Jesus they had a good understanding there, but he's kind of
well, you know what,
recently.
I did actually highlight this before the game. I said that Martinelli, very dynamic, very athletic, very explosive.
Yeah.
However, sometimes his decision making is not the best, and I think we saw that today, because prior to this game, I'd sort of earmarked that position as being crucial to this game. I thought anyway that Seamus Coleman might be an area that we might want to attack. Unfortunately, Seamus Coleman actually ended up having a very good game. So that in itself kind of shows you that we didn't really play that well today. We never really imposed ourselves on the game, man. We had a decent start, but then after a while you could see Everton, they grew in confidence, and by the end of that first half, they were pretty much in control. They had 2 or 3, I think it was 3 clear chances where you would have expected them to score. They didn't. We go in the end of that first half, we think, we got away with one there. You're expecting a team to come out and really show something. We came out, we were a bit better, but then we soon went back to not doing too much of anything. And you've got to say, Everton deserved it, man.
Yeah, they absolutely did. And towards the end of the game, there wasn't really for anything. There was nothing to get excited about, really. I didn't think we looked like scoring. I thought there were, again, we get into some decent areas, but there was nothing really penetrative about the team. There was, I thought Arsenal were just sort of hoping that the ball would fall into the back of the net, and that was.
And to be fair, we got away with one, because I don't know about you, but I thought that with Calvert-Lewin coming off and Mopé coming on, they literally had nothing up front. I mean, Mopé's sole contribution to this game was
to wind up Arsenal.
That's all he did. Fall on the floor, commit a couple of fouls, could have got himself sent off with a tangle with Zinchenko, but he offered nothing. And so it's absolutely no surprise that their goal came from a set piece by one of their defenders.
Should we have had a penalty, the Gabriel Mopé turn in the box?
It's arguable, but as I said to one of the guys on stream, that you go away from home, and listen, I'm not making excuses here, but the chances of you getting those are unlikely. If we had been at home, we may well have
don't think it's a talking. I don't think it's a talking point as I bring it up. But the reason I don't think we can really look at that too much is because the only reason I do is because I see other people talking about it. Oh, it's another decision that's gone against us. I think Mopé. It's how you want to interpret it. Has Mopé impeded Gabriel from getting there, or has Mopé sort of with control turned Gabriel and taken the ball from him? I think you can see it either way, so I'm not really.
Listen, it's a talking point, but it's not, in my view, material to the game. I don't look at that and think, that was the moment we lost it. I'm going to be honest and say we didn't do enough today. We didn't deserve to win. Definitely didn't deserve to win. I'm not sure if we did enough to even deserve a point. Yeah. Even though I think the stats in terms of shots on goal and stuff like that are very similar. I don't think we did enough, bro. I think it was a bad day at the office. But listen, let's not hang our heads in shame or get too depressed over this. Our leader's been cut, and even then, City have to go Spurs tomorrow. That's not going to be an easy game. So listen, it's not
all we
the
can
end of the
hope
world.
is they lose. We maintain our 5
if they drop
gap,
points,
Yeah.
And even if they win, listen, we're still on top of the table with a couple of points to spare, and we're playing City twice in the coming weeks. So.
And we have a game in hand.
Yeah.
Thomas says it wasn't one individual's fault today. The team was just poor. We'll bounce back. Remember, this is only the second game we've lost this season. That's very true. Sam says Ben White and Zinchenko weren't overlapping for Saka and Gabriel, who were double teamed. Why does Tommy sit on the bench when he offers more than White? And Ramsdale, shocking. Okay, Sam. I think this is going too far.
I'd like to say something on that. So, Ben White had been playing superbly up until a couple of weeks ago. A lot of people said he didn't have a very good game against Man United, but he was up against Rashford and people like that. Today, again, he didn't have a very good game. Now, is he going to make a change for the next game against Brentford when we're at home? It's going to be a different game again. I'm not so sure, but listen, at least we've got Tomiyasu there if the manager wants to make that change.
Well, Tomiyasu doesn't overlap either. If anything, he overlaps less than White. So yeah. I don't really understand that.
Yeah, I see Tomiyasu as more of a defender's defender, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, and I also think it's all well and good now saying Ben White and Zinchenko never overlap. Sure, I hear that. But then our game all season has been having our fullbacks tuck in, having our wide players really wide. It's more about what Odegaard and Xhaka did to help the wide players. People talk about the fullbacks overlapping, but I don't think the wide players did anywhere near enough.
I think the midfield was an area of concern today. Partey didn't have his best game. We've been told that he was carrying a bit of a rib injury and they took him off quite early. So that suggests that he's not operating to, his full fitness.
Yeah.
In the midfield battle, we got to be honest and say we lost that today.
Jack says, Agent Jorginho, you're going to see why fans wanted Jorginho gone. Well, let's open up the lines. Let's get some thoughts. I'll put these on. I don't know if we've got callers just yet. We've got some more super chats. Oh, we've got loads of callers already. I'm hearing. Let's bring Harvey in to discuss that. Let me see. To discuss what we were just saying there about the whole tactical side and the fullbacks not coming forward. Let's see if we can get Harvey in. We got Harvey.
Hey man, how you doing?
Oh, good. Yeah, but we can't see you on screen. Just a note to production. We can see show runtime. There we go. We can see you now, Harvey. Look, disappointing about the result. People, I know we like to sort of talk about systems and tactics and all that, and Ben White and Zinchenko didn't get forward, but I was just making the point that for me the most disappointing bit is what Odegaard and Xhaka did to help the wingers. What do you make of all that?
First and foremost, I'm hearing other people on the wall talking, so it's kind of making it difficult to hear you. But honestly, I'm much more on the side of the fullbacks not overlapping.
Fair enough.
I don't think that Xhaka and Odegaard had a good game in particular, but here's the thing. And James, you know this, but for the people who are watching, obviously we play with inverted fullbacks, right? Fullbacks occupy midfield positions, our wingers stretch out the play, and it's much more about creating underlaps and overloads in those half spaces between the center backs and the fullbacks, and that's how we exploit it. I'm in favor of playing that way because I'd rather create overloads in the areas of the pitch that are closer to goal instead of in the wide areas. But when you play against teams in a very, very defensive block, especially teams that play 5 at the back, or 4-5-1, who are then going to create 2v1 situations against the wingers, what happens is that they occupy so many players and so many bodies in the areas that we're trying to overload that it defeats the purpose of an overload, of a numerical advantage. So today we found often that the only outlet was the wingers. And once they got the ball, they were in 2v1 situations. And even though Bukayo was beating one guy, after he beats one guy, he has to beat the other and he loses the ball. And that's where the tactical switch wasn't made, and I was annoyed. And at halftime, I was bombarding the live chat, overloads in the wide areas, because against Wolves, we saw the same exact thing. We made the tactical adjustment, we got the goal. Against Newcastle, we saw the same exact thing. We didn't make tactical adjustment, we dropped points. Today, you're seeing like for like. Everybody was poor. And I think a lot of that has to come down to the quality of the pitch. You saw that they'd make a pass and the ball wouldn't even get there. It was dying, it was bobbling. You see that in La Liga all the time. When Barcelona comes to play, they don't water the pitch for 7 days and it's balls in the air the whole entire time. That's how they want to play the game. But we can't control that. We can, however, control what areas of the pitch we're trying to exploit. And it was calling out for overloads in the wide areas. And once again, Arteta, who I'm a huge fan of and have defended nonstop, refused to make the tactical adjustment, just like he did against Newcastle. And I am pissed because it was obvious.
Yeah, no, one I definitely want to explore with Graham. We might even play this clip on that show because I thought that was an interesting
The
point.
caller makes some very good points. And tactical dexterity, as I referred to it previously, is an area that has been highlighted in the past where Mikel can be a bit rigid. Yeah.
But it's funny, isn't it, Harvey? Because we score and get that winner against Man United, and everyone is praising how Arsenal, they trust what they're trying to do. They play the same way all the time. You know, but I guess the difference is that at least in that game, we'd actually seen us score 2 goals and create chances. And the frustrating thing was in this game, I don't know about you, but there was no sensing of a goal coming. If we got one, it would have been a bit of magic because there was nothing actually happening for Arsenal in terms of fluidity. We weren't earning ourselves chances or an opportunity to get a goal back.
Yeah, exactly, and that's the thing.
There's an often used saying in football, sometimes you have to earn the right to play. And I was saying to James, I don't know what you think, Harvey, I'll be interested to hear what you think about this, but I just got the impression that Everton, it wasn't wildly so, but I just thought, I had this feeling, pervasive feeling that Everton, in the final analysis, wanted it a bit more than we do. Today, there were several 50-50s that we lost out on. Even the goal kind of epitomised our performance today. You literally see Tarkowski holding off Odegaard and getting himself into a position where he can head the ball into the back of the net. And Odegaard, for me, didn't do enough at that moment. And that kind of epitomised what I saw today. We were often second best.
I mean, listen, that set piece was poor. And listen, we have to give a lot of credit to Nicolas Jovet because I think he's made us one of the best teams in terms of set pieces, but obviously not a lot of set pieces to study with a new manager coming in, so I think we're exploiting that direction. But regarding the physicality, listen, the Premier League is a physical league, but I can't buy that because I saw a midfield of Iniesta and Xavi, 2 guys who were 5'5", dominating Europe. I saw a Spanish team that I think had a single player over 6 feet with the exception of Piqué, with Carlos Puyol at center back, and they were just passing the ball around, nobody could touch it. So this idea that the physicality, they wanted it more, with all due respect, and it's nothing directed towards you. I'm just really, really pissed off. I think it's BS. Like, the players did not find any fluidity. Our game is playing the game, right? Creating the triangles, creating the overloads, playing the game on the ground. Everton's game today was physicality, ball in the air. We can't go and play your game. This isn't a relegation fight. We need to play ours. And what we need to do is that we need to create an opportunity to play our game. And James, you talked about it. Like, yes, we need to stick to our principles, but the principles are more or less very, very similar. Like, if you look at Liverpool, the fullbacks are the ones that create those winger opportunities. Their midfielders are the ones that do that legwork, so they stay in the middle of the park. But when you look at it from analysis on top, from bird's eye view, it's a 2-3-5 and attack. The same way that we play. It's the same thing. So you're still exploiting the same exact area. It's just a matter of how you get there. The reason I prefer our system
with respect, are you not saying what I'm saying then? Because you said that, but we wasn't able to impose ourselves on the game, which is what I'm saying. Everton made it a dogfight. They imposed their will on us, and they were able to get the better of us in a scrappy game. That's what I'm saying. So the fact that they were able to do that shows me that they probably wanted it a bit more than us because they were able to impose their style on us rather than the other way around.
But that's why you then need to make the adjustment. Because if they're imposing their game, because the thing is that we'd get the ball man and they'd come in, they'd put the foot in there, they're
definitely
getting really physical with us. And so when we finally were able to unlock them, and we finally were able to find the one outlet to the player who wasn't involved in that scrap, as you say, particularly in the center of the field, it was our wingers. But then they have nobody to help them out. They're relying on an underlap from Odegaard or from Xhaka, where there's 3-4 bodies around them that Odegaard would get the ball and he's running 30-40 yards back because there's 2-3 guys chasing him. That's when you need the fullbacks to come up. It was a perfect game for Tierney to come on because then you create those wide areas. And now what happens? Now you're taking players out, you're forcing them more wide. And now when you want to come back inside, now you have an Odegaard with time and space on the ball. That's where you make those tactical changes. You saw it against Newcastle. How many times did Martinelli get the ball? And Trippier was just manhandling him. He couldn't do anything about it. Was crying for Tierney to come out. And in fact, even today, when you go watching back the highlights, you're going to notice that the openings that we had actually came when Zinchenko was on the overlap, when he was helping out Martinelli. Most of the times where we actually looked dangerous, when we weren't shooting from 30 yards out, was when we actually got the ball to the byline on that left-hand side and tried to come in with a cutback or a cross. That's what the game was crying for, because they had so many bodies in that midfield.
Yeah, look, Harvey, always a pleasure to chat to you. Thank you so much for jumping on. And a lot of what you just said, I want to explore in tactical insight as well with Graham. So I'd be interested to get his thoughts.
Some very good points made.
Yeah, thanks for joining. Really appreciate it, Harvey. Always great to chat. Who have we got next? We've got Dini next. Come join us, Dini. Dini, welcome. It's a disappointing one. It's actually the first full-time of FanZone where we've actually had to discuss a defeat, but hopefully it can be therapeutic for people. Hopefully we can leave this in a positive. But give me your thoughts, let it out, give us your analysis of the game.
Sorry, could you say that again? I'm just getting some...
Oh, sorry, is it not coming through? I just said give us your thoughts on the game.
Just annoying, I guess. I feel like my main word is composure. We lack composure. We lack a lot of composure today. A lot of misplaced passes, especially in the last half an hour. I was waiting for that moment where we was gonna put Everton under the pump and just really stick it on them like we did against Man United for the last half an hour, but it just never happened.
Yeah. And
I get what's being said. I feel like it's weird, but it seemed like they wanted it more today.
Mm-hmm.
The new manager bounce came in, and they just wanted it more. It's just a tough day at the office. It's an annoying one.
I felt a similar way, that composure was missing. I think they kept composure in the sense that I think they wanted to keep playing the same way, and I don't think they panicked, if that makes sense. I just think composure in terms of just relax and play the football you know how to play. It felt like they just didn't get control of their own side of the game.
It was starting to get a bit desperate as well.
Yeah.
Dini, bro, you said in your assessment of the game there exactly what I said. New manager bounce. To me, Everton dragged us down to their level, and I don't mean that in a disrespectful way. They knew that they weren't going to get the better of the football in Arsenal. What they did today was harry us, chase us, put it on us a little bit. And I have to say, and it pains me to say this, but in the final analysis, they wanted it a little bit more than us, which is disappointing. I mean, I said to James that if you look at the goal, even if you look at the goal, that kind of epitomised what we saw today. You saw Tarkowski holding off Odegaard far too easily, making himself space to head the ball into the net.
Mm-hmm. I don't know what's going on. Something's going on. But sorry, I've just lost my train of thought.
No, sorry, Dini. Actually, let me just leave you with something. I'd like to get your reaction to this. By the way, Wolves have gone 2-0 up against Liverpool, so I guess.
I don't know why I laugh, because we lost, but I ain't gonna lie, that put a smile on my face.
No, I guess it's better to lose and stay top of the table. I guess that's the one thing I'd say.
But listen, it's a long season. I've been preaching this from time. There's still 18 games left, just over half the season. So there are going to be days like this where things don't. So what we've got to do
right now, it's all about the reaction right now.
Yes. So I said to James earlier that next week you'll probably see a completely different team. We're at home. We're against Brentford in a game that we're expected to win, and I think you'll see a totally different performance than the one you saw today.
Well, here's a quote. Dini, let's get your final thoughts just on this. Mikel Arteta to BT said, "Today, what I told them is that I love them much more than a week ago, a month ago, seasons ago. It's easy to be next to someone who is winning and playing well. This is the moment I have to be next to them because they deserve it." What do you make of that?
That's why I like Mikel Arteta as my manager, because he's very, very good at protection, and he understands the situation. Even though we are fighting for a title, these boys are still young, and he needs to literally sometimes just baby them to get them through this. But even though he's babying them and protecting them, I expect him to be literally just getting into them after that game. We cannot play like this again. We need to go to Brentford and we need to win that game.
No, I think he means what he says. I think behind the scenes he has said to them, look, bad day, but you've been amazing, so believe in yourselves. I think tearing into them after sort of one bad game in 20. But Dini, you've been fantastic. Thanks so much for joining.
Respect, Thank you for having me as always.
Respect,
Laurie and James. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the call.
Laurie, I'm very aware that we're keeping you as well from other plans, so I don't know if you I love having you here, so you stay as long as you want.
Yeah, I'll stay for a few more.
Fantastic. We have Michael. Let's bring in Michael as well. Hey, Michael, how you doing? Always very, very positive, but this is a tough one to take. Oh, the audio's not coming through on my end. It's just taking a second. I've just been told by production. Apparently he's switching over to something else, and now it's frozen. I'm being told, okay, no, we've lost him. But yeah, interesting message that. Let's just talk about what Arteta said there. You know, I do think his message in the background and in the dressing room would have been, look, we, you know, don't panic. Okay, you've had a bad day, and he probably, while in his mind he'll say manager bounce isn't an excuse, the bad pitch isn't an excuse, Goodison, the atmosphere isn't an excuse. He'll probably, to a degree, lean on that with the players and say, you just had a bad day, you know, it was the perfect storm, whatever, let's move on, because he's got to keep the players in good spirits and feeling good going into what is a more favourable run of games after a really tricky January.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, as I said before, and I'll keep saying it, it's a long season. Unfortunately, there will be days like today. I'm sure City will experience a few themselves. I mean, there's no guarantee they're going to win tomorrow. We've got to accept it for what it is, acknowledge our failings and move on. We've got a chance to bounce back next week against Brentford. It's a home game, and I'm expecting a very different performance. But as far as today goes, you know, we just got to put it down to one of those bad days at the office. We weren't completely outplayed or anything like that. It wasn't an horrendous display. I mean, I'm looking at the stats here. We actually had more shots than Everton. Very similar on target. The possession was more. Yeah, stats can be misleading, but I guess what I'm saying is, it wasn't like we were completely played off the park or we were completely bullied. There were areas of concern, but at the end of the day, in a long season, you're going to get days like this. Everton were mad up for this game. You could see that. And to be fair to them, they deserved their victory. But, you know, it's one of 19 or 18 games now left. So
yep, very true. I think we've got Elliot. Did I hear that right? Sorry? Yeah? Hey, how you doing?
James, Laurie, how are you both doing today?
Good.
We've had better days, but yeah.
I remember you weren't too happy about the Jorginho signing. Did that cameo do much to help?
Oh, that's right, because Jorginho couldn't pass win today, quite simply, and he was he quite simply, you know, lived up to my expectations of Jorginho.
But I think it would be unfair to scapegoat him, and I hope we're not going to say he's the reason
him.
why we
No.
lost
The whole team was crap.
Yeah,
the whole team was crap.
Yeah.
Let's face facts here.
I think it would be unfair to just dig him out.
I'm not going to. Well, here's the thing. I expected this. People told me I was crazy, and yet in his first match, lo and behold, he lays a stinker, and people thought I was crazy. People thought I was nuts, and lo and behold, there it is. There it is for on display for everyone to see. Now, again, I told people about Onana as well, if you remember. What happened to Onana today? He was absolutely dynamic. He ran that midfield, and people called me crazy, absolutely nuts, for saying, oh, you shouldn't have talked about Onana. Well, look at what Onana did today, a man of the match performance, right? So it's not as if I'm talking out of, you know, cloud cuckoo land. It seems that you have, and let's face facts. The whole side was second best today, right? But let's rejig this. It's a case where, you know, we have to call into question our transfer dealings. We have to call into the question our tactics. You know, teams now have a good enough amount of intel on how to beat Arsenal. Get in our faces, dominate the midfield, bully them, and you will get your just desserts. And quite simply, it's happened again today. So
it's our second defeat of the season. It's our only bad performance, really, out of the 20 this season. And, you know, teams can have an off day. Liverpool, who are on the most unbelievable run over 38 games anyone's ever seen across 2 seasons, had that ended by Watford, who were looking like did they go down that year? Anyway, they lost 3-0. Liverpool, you know, that can happen.
It can indeed happen, James, and I appreciate that. But at the end of the day, this is a warning shot. This is a shot across the bow. Man City will take heart from this defeat. And that's the one thing I hate. I've always hated, way back when to the Invincibles when they faced Bolton. I hate facing sides in relegation because they have everything to play for, and especially relegation sides that have just had a new manager put into place. New manager bounce with a relegation side who are going to fight tooth and nail in order to get a result. And lo and behold, it did. I mean, the goal was symptomatic of that. Odegaard was bullied by Tarkowski on that goal. He was absolutely pushed around.
Would you not expect that?
Yes.
Would you not expect
Of
Odegaard
course you would
to be
expect
bullied?
that.
So it's about who's saying that Odegaard should be marking Tarkowski, no?
That's exactly right. We didn't get our tactics right in that instance, and I'll concede that point there. But at the end of the day, it was a microcosm of the macrocosm of the match. They came, they bullied us, they got their goal, and they got their win. It's as simple as that. And we have to. I mean, Mikel Arteta has got to go back to the drawing board and see this, and a lot of people and Arsenal have to take a look in the mirror and really take heart and really take stock of the fact that this is a title race. Every match is important. You can't just mail matches in, and that's what they did today. Quite simply.
Always a pleasure having you on. Thank you so much.
Thanks, bro. Yeah. You made a lot of good points there, and listen, it's a long season. As I've said many times before, you're going to get days like this. City are going to get days like this, I would imagine. So, so
let's try and get Michael back on as well. Michael,
okay, can you hear me now?
We can hear you. How are you?
Okay, good. Well, I just want to say, as fans, we've got to take to heart what Arteta says about focusing on what we can control and what we can't. And I disagree with this attitude in a lot of our fan base that we flip back and forth between ecstasy when we win and morbid depression when we lose. The Premier League is a long haul, and almost every team has bad games like this, even when they win the title. And I feel like as fans, when we just go yay when we win and boo when we lose, it's like we're ball watching on a corner. We're not doing our job in thinking about what's happening over time. Obviously, this was a really bad game. Everybody was down on it. But I feel like when we lift that title, either this year or next year, and I think that's going to happen, the fans that really deserve to stand up and cheer are the ones who kept the faith through games like this. So I'll give you some Shakespeare. He that sheds his blood with me shall be my brother. And gentlemen in England, now abed, shall think themselves accursed. That's all I got, guys.
Mike, honestly,
Very
always
poetic.
love your contribution. Thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
man. Thank you very much.
I think that's a real message there, what he said about it's a long, hard season winning the Premier League. You're going to have bad games, so let's not all completely lose it over a bad day. People will say unacceptable performance. People will say they wanted it more, and that's never right. But I hear that. Wants it 10 out of 10.
Listen,
and today we came up against a team that were very good at doing what they had to do today. We were off it, but I don't think for what we've seen in these last 19 games prior to this one that we can actually question the commitment of these players. Let's get behind them. Bad day, on to the next.
Absolutely. And what that caller said there, he kind of articulated possibly better than I did with the poetry and all that. But at the end of the day, his sentiments were exactly what mine was, which is that it's a long season. There are going to be days like this. In many ways today we were up against it. I told anyone that would listen that this game is going to be a difficult game.
Yeah.
The new manager bounce thing was very real. Sean Dyche has a reputation for being difficult to get wins against his side, and that's what you saw today, man.
Yeah,
so,
we've got another caller, and I believe Dylan's going to join us as well. So Dylan, you come in. Laurie, a big thank you. And who's joining us? Sorry, Brandon. Say that again. Aston's joining us. Let's get Aston in. Aston, always a pleasure. How are you, my friend?
We've had better days. But I do want to kind of talk about this game a little bit, because I think that as fans, we get fixated on negatives that make us kind of cloud our bias in the game.
Yeah.
I actually think that we didn't play well, but it wasn't a bad technical game from us. We weren't losing the ball a lot. We weren't misplacing a ton of passes. The issue on the field was our ability to creatively come up with solutions and answers to the defensive shape and what Everton were doing. What you would notice in the game is Everton actually, surprisingly, their center backs were a lot further up the pitch than I think anyone expected. They were actually in a middle block, not a low block. What they would do is they would switch immediately back to the low block after forcing the ball out wide. Unfortunately, what was happening was Partey and Zinchenko were a little too deep when they were making their diagonal crosses, giving Everton enough time to have their second players, their wingers, come in 2v1 Saka and Martinelli. And as alluded to earlier, Xhaka and Odegaard weren't actually participating in that triangle enough. Neither were our fullbacks overlapping. So basically, you're asking Martinelli and Saka to win 2v1 every time. And I think that if fans expect, like I'm hearing a lot of slagging off Martinelli, but if you expect him to win against two defenders every ball, I think you're asking for a miracle. I just don't. I don't think that that's reasonable,
I think you made some great points, Aston. There are two bits I do challenge, though. First is, I know what you mean. Technically, we weren't awful, but there were some really, what Cecil calls hospital passes, those where you've just underhit it to the player or whatever, and then you're inviting the press. I think there was a lot of that, though. I know what you mean. We were able to keep the ball quite well at times. The other thing that I want to challenge and I disagree with there is the Martinelli thing you mentioned, which is, I don't expect him to beat his man 2-on-1, but I do expect him to make better decisions and recognise the situation a little bit better. I know he's young, and I know he's just on a new contract, and he's played a lot of football in the last year and a half, 2 years, and I love him. That goes without saying. But there are a few times where he wanted to take on Seamus Coleman, where he never felt like he had the space or the room or the angle, either to beat him for skill or to beat him for just raw pace. And then when he was coming inside, he wasn't always picking the best option. He was taking a bit too long. Whereas Saka, while he wasn't at his best, at least was making punchy decisions. Am I going to take you on? Yes. Yeah. Or am I going to come inside, try combine? Yes. And I think that is why ultimately you saw Marte come off and Saka stayed on the pitch.
I think that's also to do with the substitutes bench as well. We have a ready-made, think about this. I mean, all of us were licking our lips. Like, can you imagine playing Martinelli for 65 minutes and then having to play Trossard after? That's going to be a strategy you're going to see Mikel Arteta execute for the rest of the season. I think one of the biggest issues that's overlooked here is Martin Odegaard had 38 touches today. Aaron Ramsdale had 40. Martin Odegaard was absolutely blocked out of that match, and I think a lot of it has to do with our ability. It's a little bit of Granit Xhaka. Granit Xhaka isn't as comfortable between the lines. Yeah. So Odegaard's the only one kind of flying in that space, and that makes him kind of easy to kind of man mark out of the game because you don't have an alternative. What I would have loved to see from Arteta in this game is actually a switch for Vieira instead of Xhaka and left Odegaard on the pitch and see what kind of we can do with two players in between the lines in those situations, because I just don't think that we had any creativity going through the middle.
Well,
and that was the problem.
I just wanted to know, obviously I watched the game as well. I was thinking, I thought Odegaard wasn't, with the minimal amount of touches he was given, I didn't think he actually played too badly, but I think a lot of Odegaard's game, I think, was down to the wingers not really doing much with what he was giving them, or not really taking the chances when they were coming to them, and Martinelli wasn't really at his best today, as we've already mentioned. And I don't know if Odegaard coming off was maybe the right decision. I think maybe with us going for a goal, I think maybe it would have been all right to put Odegaard in the 8 where he's played before, and maybe bring off a Xhaka or a Partey and put Fabio Vieira in the 10. But what did you make of Jorginho's debut?
It was kind of lackluster. This is the problem that I have with the Jorginho signing in the first place. Is it's not that I don't think he's a good player. It's that he comes with so much baggage that every single touch and every single pass he makes is going to get scrutinized by half of the fan base. And I think that that's going to bias everything that we see. I don't think that he had an insanely bad game. I just don't think he was a little too quick to pass out to the wings. I call it the Granit Xhaka El Nini 6 problem, where they love to pass out to the wings because the center of the pitch is a little too congested for them. And I think Jorginho suffered a little bit from that. And he's not quite as athletic as Thomas Partey. So after he has a great first touch, so he can secure the ball, but it's that next step. That next step that isn't quite there for Jorginho, but maybe that'll come with time and familiarity with players. On the note with the Martin Odegaard thing, I think right before he got subbed off, we saw him be incredibly influential. So I want to say that I agree with that call. And again, I want to note that I think it came from the fact that Zinchenko ever so slightly pushed a little further up in that space and was able to then kind of play balls quicker out to the wing so they weren't floated for so long. And then that's when you see Odegaard kind of start to come into the game when Saka's a little more effective in that way. So I just think that this game, unfortunately, I don't know if it was a mentality thing or what's going on, but the players just weren't coming up with different answers.
Yeah, it was an off day.
Right? We saw the same. Remember the donut of hell that we used to play? Yeah. It was a little bit more, it was a little bit of that, where we would just kind of shift the ball out to the wing, pass it to the middle, shift it to the other wing without a lot of dynamic runs in the middle. I think Eddie Nketiah, I think he did fine, but I don't think that we were passing the ball very quickly to him. We didn't take advantage of that mid-block when he was making runs. I don't know what it was. I just think there was something off today.
Yep, I agree. Aston, it's always a pleasure chatting to you. Thank you so much.
Cheers.
Speak soon. Dylan, welcome back. Had a bit of time to collect your thoughts.
I don't want to just be angry because at the end of the day, we are top of the league. That was our game in hand. We're still 5 points clear. I know Man City go and play tomorrow, but now we've got a good idea of where we're at. Us and Man City have played 20 games each, and we're 5 points clear. This now puts a lot of pressure on those 2 games against Man City, especially the one coming up in 2 weeks, because when we play them at home, it's more or less going to be a must. If we want to go for a league title and we're playing against second place, we are going to have to win that game, whether we like it or not. We can't come out of that game thinking, all right, cool, well, we gave them a decent run for their money. We've improved. Okay, we got a draw, which is not the worst result. I'd take a draw for sure, but against Man City, we can't have regrets coming out of that game, because now we've left ourselves in a position where if they beat us both games, they now have the advantage. So having not played them already this season, they now have they've got a pass to get ahead of us now. So we need to keep up our form. I know Man City are probably going to drop points as well along the road. We're going to drop points, I imagine, as well. There'll be plenty of games coming up where I see us, struggling, and that's not because. That's nothing. There's no discredit to the team. It's just obviously the team's obviously going to have off days. Today was one of them. We didn't manage to get the win today, but that's football. That is football.
Mr. Katsala says Arsenal were a little too one-dimensional today with no real plan B. Even with the subs on, the game plan didn't change, unfortunately. Black Caesar says a good team can win with 1 to 2 players having a bad day, but 4 to 5 not against a team playing out of their skin. Yeah. And to the toxic internet crowd, this was not on the new signings. Majid says Martinez should have stayed on, is what he means. He put stayed on, and bring on Trossard from midfielder or right back. Our subs were like for like. We need more people in the box, and the system didn't look like working.
One thing I want to say about that is I heard Trossard could play in the centre forward role. Now, we've got Smith Rowe. He wasn't on the bench today, right?
No.
So Smith Rowe can play on the left. Now, when we do have Smith Rowe back, I feel like we're going to have a lot more options in attack. Right now, we're kind of in a position where it's like Martinelli for Trossard, no backup to Nketiah. Reece Nelson's not quite ready to come in for Saka. So right now, we've got minimal depth. When Smith Rowe comes back in, we're going to have Trossard, who could, we could bring on Smith Rowe for maybe Martinelli. That's a different type of player. We could bring on Trossard in the 9, bring him on for Eddie Nketiah. Obviously, hopefully, we're going to have Jesus back soon enough. I heard he's back in
I can see how Smith Rowe comes in for Xhaka in that game, and then maybe add at least a little bit more drive. I couldn't believe Xhaka didn't take the shot off when he
I know, that was so annoying.
Wide to Trossard, but anyway.
But right now we are really struggling for attacking depth. That's a problem we saw today for sure.
Dave Jordan says, I'm so glad we have so many armchair managers. He never likes it when we offer our tactical opinion on things. But he's always a regular, so fair play. Ishan says, why is there a dip in player performance every time they sign a new contract? Just a joke, he says. He wants to just stress that he's not being too serious. Rye asks a good question. James and Laurie, bring up yourselves. Disappointing result, but unfortunately, it's games like this will come. It's a bad day at the office, but we'll bounce back against Brentford next Saturday, I reckon. Good comment. It's actually not the comment I thought of. Oh, no, yeah, because Rye sent in another one. I thought there was more than that. He then says, guys, are the AFTV videos completely stopping now, as I feel it's unfair for fans that can't get on AFTV FANZONE? Got kicked off the app twice. We'll look into that to find out what happened there with the app. But yeah, for now, we are just taking the calls because obviously it's an opportunity to really chat to you and get your thoughts properly, but there might be opportunities to bring in videos in another way, shape or form. But yeah, let's go to JR. Speaking of FANZONE, let's bring in JR. Welcome back, good to chat to you. Disappointing day. We'll do Arsenal and Arteta, and us as fans as well, we're including this. What do we need to do to ensure that we don't get overwhelmed by this defeat, and that, okay, bad day, on to the next, and keep things moving?
Well, you know what? I actually think that we've done pretty well with disappointing performances. We've pretty much bounced back after every single one. So I don't even think if there's something that we need to do. I think what we probably need to address is how we deal with these minnow teams. Sorry to call Everton a minnow team, but some of these bottom teams that are fighting for their lives and doing the low block and doing all the other tactics, some of the little dark arts against us, and we need to figure out how to beat those teams. Because you know what, if we're playing City, it wouldn't be a game like this. It would be a totally different game, a totally open game where we may actually be able to play better than the game today. But my biggest thing I want to say, and the biggest comment, is that I'm still not worried, right? Because I don't think City can get 6 points on us this season, right? I believe that if anything, we'll split the points.
Yeah, I completely agree. This is not a dig on, because I know what fans are like. This is not a dig on Eddie Nketiah at all. I didn't feel he had a lot to do or a lot to feed off, and actually he fashioned a chance for himself. He took it badly. But do you think we missed a Gabriel Jesus today? Do you think in a game like today, it reminds me of Wolves away, where it's a bit more condensed, they've got a really good shape, and you need someone who just provides a bit of magic, who can just take 2-3 players out the game. We nearly had that with Eddie when he went down the left and then cut inside and rolled it to Odegaard. So in fairness, he nearly produced that. But do you think we missed Jesus a little bit?
But apart from reading everybody's mind, James, I think that's where you see the clear difference between Eddie and Jesus. I mean, today, I don't know what the stats are, but I'm sure Eddie probably had least touches today than any other game. I think maybe when you need somebody to get involved in the game, change the game, because obviously our game is not an upfront striker game. It's always a connectivity game. And I think that's where Eddie's a little bit lacking, because this is a game that he needed to come deep in and needed to create those opportunities. And like Harvey said, needed to create overloads in different places, because they were obviously targeting our wingers and our star boys to try and cut them out of the game. And when it comes to Odegaard, I don't know if you noticed, but after that first couple of challenges, he wasn't on it. He looked like he picked up a little bit of a knock. So I could kind of understand the performance today on that, because I think he was targeted just as well as Martinelli and Saka were targeted.
Yeah, it's just such a shame that it's Mope and Sean Dyche, but is what it is. JR, always a pleasure to chat to you. Thank you.
All right.
We're going to have the lines open, everyone, for about another 5-6 minutes. So we got a couple more callers to go through. In fact, let's round off the show with them. We've got Piers. Let's welcome Piers. How are you, Piers?
How's it going, guys? Doing great. Obviously, a little disappointed in our performance, especially since, we were 10 points ahead at one point in time in this season, but now we're only 5. So I just feel like we're slightly losing a little momentum, it feels like.
Well, it is what people aren't talking about, Dylan, which is, okay, this is our first bad result in the league for a while. We've been on a very good run, but it's also a defeat against Man City the week before in the FA Cup. Okay, we rotated a lot, so I think we were able to stomach that to a degree. Yeah. And then before that was the United Spurs game. Before that was Newcastle. So it's actually only 2 wins in our last 5. Now, I'm just saying, like, it's funny how you can take stats and you can take results and spin them how you want, if you know what I mean.
Oh, no, I agree, and I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer. That's for darn sure. I think we have had the best season I've ever watched. And I mean, I've only been a fan since 2015. That's when I started getting involved. But I mean, I'm not in the camp of we should get down on ourselves. Yeah. We should feel bad about this result because, I mean, there were some still bright spots in the game. I felt, and you said it earlier, I feel like we are missing a Gabriel Jesus because he would have been brilliant because he's a big frame guy. He likes holding up the ball, likes creating spaces and taking on 2 defenders. And Martinelli wasn't able to get off of 2 defenders. It is what it is. Can't get angry at that. They just played really well, and they were set up for success. Everton was.
Is there anything you think we could have done extra in the transfer window to maybe, today we were lacking depth in attack, really, I think, today. Obviously, we had Smith Rowe and Reece Nelson injured. Obviously, Jesus is injured as well. So, we are in an injury problem. Well, I wouldn't call it a crisis, but we've got problems of injuries in attack.
A couple of players we'd like to have had, weren't
there?
But
yeah, exactly.
Still brought on Trossard, Jorginho. It's a good question, Dylan, to be fair.
Okay, so my thing with the transfers is we got who we could. Sadly, Chelsea has gotten rid of all financial fair play rules. They're just doing whatever they want, and nobody cares.
Yep.
So I think that's part of the biggest problem on why we weren't able to get a attacker. I mean, Mudryk, how do you say his name?
Mudryk.
Mudryk. Thank you.
Yeah, Mudryk.
So Mudryk.
I'm being used to say Mudryk because I've heard it from everyone, but it is Mudryk. Yeah.
Yeah. So Mudryk, he obviously would have been a great person to slide in there. He has a great physical attack always. He can dribble the ball insanely. He's a great player. And but I mean, like I said, it was just who we could get. Yes, I feel like an attacker, especially an out-and-out 9, a real striker, would have been a great buy just because, like you said, we're missing Gabriel. Eddie Nketiah is the only real striker we have in the field. I mean, Balogun, we could have brought him back.
Yeah.
But then again, I think he's having such a great time over there in Ligue 1.
Yeah. No,
it would be a disservice to take him out of that environment that he's flourishing in.
Yeah. Now, last season, obviously, towards the end of the season, we folded in the race for the top 4. Obviously, we were lacking squad depth, and obviously we look back to that January transfer window. Do you think the lack of business we did in this January transfer, I don't think we did too badly in terms of our inbringings, but do you think it will cost us going into the run-in? Obviously, we've seen us lose today at Everton. Obviously, I assume we're going to drop more points in the run-in to the end of the league because no team's perfect. I expect Man City to drop points as well. But do you think we're going to look back at this window and maybe think we could have done more, or do you think we got enough out of this January transfer window?
Well, I mean, we had 3 players. We got 1 in attack, we got 1 in midfield, and we got 1 in defense. I feel like that's really what we needed to strengthen our depth. I was looking at the January transfer window before it happened, as in this is where we need to go and get those really good players for our backups. Because I mean, and everybody, I can't tell you. So I did a mistake. I went on Twitter, Arsenal Twitter. I swear right now is a burning house fire. Everyone's complaining about Jorginho, how we got him, how he's a flop. I think we all need to relax.
Yeah,
he has
100%.
been used to playing a different style of football. He will come good. He's a Champions League winner. He's a European League winner. He knows what he's doing. He will come good. I think that the thing is like I said, we got who we could get. I gave it an 8 out of 10 when we were doing those, the scores on it. But obviously, it could have been better.
Yeah. Always a pleasure, Piers. Thanks so much for jumping on.
Cheers, guys. Have a good one. And remember, Arsenal's strong.
Listen, we are strong. We're still 5 points ahead of Man City. Okay, that game in Hound's gone, but then they play Spurs tomorrow. Yeah. If Spurs do us a favour,
do you think they've got a chance, Spurs?
Yeah, I think they've got a chance. Absolutely. I mean, Guardiola's never won at Tottenham's new ground.
No, he hasn't.
So I think in 4 attempts. So
Yeah.
I think there's every chance that Spurs go there, that City go there and drop points. And either if they get a draw, they cut it to 4, and we've got 4 in a game in hand. That's not a bad position at all. If they lose, then it's 5 in a game in hand, like we were going into this weekend. And we'll look at it and go, okay, that's really disappointing. But okay, I mean, we move on to the next. Our record out in 20 games is 16-2. That is a pretty unbelievable return.
Yeah, that is. To be honest, right. I knew. Right, obviously, we've done really well this season against the teams like Man United, Tottenham, and what I've loved about this season is that we've started to prove ourselves in the bigger games, and in the bigger games we have been turning up. Man United, unfortunately, we didn't have our most important player, and you win some, you lose some. We lost to Man United away. It happens, right? I knew, and in any title race, Man City last season, there would have been games they lost to the smaller teams. We were going to lose to a game that we didn't expect to lose. Today we've lost to Everton away, and there's obviously circumstances behind that. We've played an Everton team who are fighting for their lives right now at the bottom of the table, and they've got a new manager bounce, and it was always going to be a tough game. Unfortunately, today the players, they weren't up to it. They just simply weren't up to scratch, and I just feel like it's just such a chance missed. At the same time, I understand what you're saying about how well we've been doing and how good as a whole it's been this season. But I really do just feel like overall that, like, of all the games to lose, this was such an annoying one to lose.
Yeah, agreed. Let's go. We've got 2 more callers. We're going to round off the show with 2 more callers. Let's get Will's thoughts. Hey, Will, how you doing?
You're right. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, can see you. It's all good. Well, look, I mean, I think we're trying to explore the positives. I think we can be happy at least where the team are at this stage in the season, but it's been a bad day.
Do you know what? It has, but I felt quite indifferent about the result. I just feel like, especially if you've been on Twitter, seeing what Sean Dyche put those lads through, training-wise, mate, they were absolutely finished. You kind of just knew it wasn't going to be a good day for us, but I don't feel disheartened about it. They just that how could I say?
They wanted it more than us.
Manager bounce that they received today. It really put us on.
I mean, they clearly wanted it more than us, like you said before. You saw the way Sean Dyche was putting them through their paces in the middle of the week, and I mean, one thing I will say against that is that one thing that always annoys me most about when Arsenal loses, I'm happy to see us get outplayed if we play a good team, but not wanting it enough is something that does really dishearten me, because when you're playing in a game like Everton, they're 19th, and we're in a title race, to not want the game as much as a team in 19th place.
I don't think, it's like I was saying to Laurie, and in fairness, I think you'd have missed this part, but I was saying, Will, that if you could quantify what wanting something is, like, so if I want something 90%, but Everton want it 100%, they'd want it more. Like, I didn't look at Arsenal today. I think they didn't want it. I just think Everton were just playing like men possessed out there. They were just they were scrapping for everything. And then we all said, well, they'll tire. And I think that was part of Arteta's thinking. But if I bring on Jorginho Trossard, they'll tire, so they'll drop into a shape, and actually they'll be able to conjure something, but they didn't. Onana kept going. At one point, he followed Saliba all the way to the end and then battered his chest to the fans. I mean,
they were on it today.
They were all over us, and I don't think Arsenal actually shied away from that. I just think they couldn't hack it on a bad day.
I agree with that, definitely. I feel like Sean Dyche, with these set of lads, he's almost like bringing this Bielsa type of football where you just run into the ground.
The press was immense. You're right. I mean, credit to, they didn't just sit and park the bus. They really took it to us.
Yeah, and I don't. There's not many sides, if not even really, I can mention another side that is going to be able to do that. That's why I don't feel disheartened, because like what I think it's Harvey, the beginning of this session, he was talking about how, in Spain, Barcelona, they play their football. Arsenal, we play our football, and there's not many teams that can actually resist our play for a full 90 minutes unless you run yourself into the ground. And running yourself into the ground, you don't turn up a weekend and just say we're going to run ourselves into the ground. You have to be training for that.
Yeah.
So I don't.
Speaking of
That's
running
why I don't
yourselves
feel
into the
this
ground,
one.
would you have brought on Kieran Tierney on a game like today?
That was one thing that, definitely was coming across my mind, bringing on Turney. And, I would have loved to have Zinchenko in for Xhaka, Turney out on the side.
It's a great,
That's a good idea.
Great point.
That is a good idea.
It's a great idea.
So I'm with you on Zinchenko. I wouldn't have brought him off either. I think what you've just brought up there is a really good idea. I didn't actually think of that.
Because even, for the corner, I feel like we're fortunate enough to not concede more. This side, Everton side, I can put money on them getting a lot of set pieces. We're just lucky that we met them on the first time. Because you see that, oh God, I don't blame him. They have this trick where they put it back stick, hold the lads. So they've got strong lads. You see Saliba, everyone, they were held, pinned, back stick. Someone like Tarkowski, he's going to win 7 out of 10 duels, I honestly believe. So we're just lucky not to concede more from the corners because they haven't prepared as well.
Yeah.
But that team is going to get a lot of goals on set pieces. It's a testament to us that that's the only way that they can score, because they did mention during the match only City have scored more than us, only Newcastle have conceded less than us. It was just an unfortunate day for us. But
no, I hear you.
100%.
Well, fantastic, cool. Honestly, you made some great points there, especially about Zinchenko. Could he have come into midfield and we could have mixed things up in different ways? So really appreciate your insight. Thank you for joining us.
Cheers, lads.
Well, we've got one final call to end it off. I think we'll just look at the bigger picture here. We've got Sam. Let's get Sam in. Hey, Sam, how are you?
Yes. Hi. How is everybody doing?
Look, in life, good. And there's bigger things than football. In football, disappointed. But I think, Arsenal, every game they've lost this season, except for the FA Cup and Cup games, but every game they've lost in a league capacity, they've dropped from first to first. So I think we can look at the positives.
Yes, I 100% agree. We can definitely look at the positives of this particular game. For me, I've been listening to the last two speakers, and they were actually spot on. The gentleman, the very first gentleman who talked about the overload situation, I 100% agree with. Yes, he was like spot on, because that's kind of what I saw. They were doubling down on Saka and Martinelli, and it needed like somebody to come and leave that pressure off of them. And Tomiyasu is that perfect right back to come and do that type of overlap, where he is kind of very intelligent in making those runs. And Tierney too is also what I was seeing at some point in the game, maybe at halftime or maybe at 60th minute or so. Maybe Tierney should have come on so that they could have freed up some of those overloads that were being put down on Saka and Martinelli. But I agree with also the last speaker who said that that was actually a brilliant idea to take Xhaka off and then put Zinchenko there, and then put a Tierney in his place. Actually, that was actually brilliant.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought about that one.
Yeah,
but,
that would have been a great idea.
But for me, that was fantastic. But to be honest with you, they were sitting in the low block. They were defending tooth and nail. And I know everybody is slagging off Odegaard. I think he did his best. I hear people talking about Partey. Partey actually did really well. In Ketia, obviously, they were like really, really marking him out of the game. I think he was playing well, but there was really no space with the way they were marking, and which is why the only outlet for the team was on the wings with the overload. And I know it's kind of disappointing because nobody really expected us to lose this kind of game. But I think maybe the only thing that we can take away from this is that maybe I really just hope that these teams that sit deep in the low block, we can also make and do our own overload. Because I'll just pass it back to you with this. In the last game, the Manchester game, when we're inviting pressure, they identified the right side. They were attacking us down the right side with Rashford. I mean, their left side, our right side with Rashford. And then White got that yellow card, and then he got substituted at halftime. And then Tomiyasu came on. When Tomiyasu came on, then that is when the attacks down that flank stopped. So I'm just hoping that maybe next time we can create an overload. I don't know what you think about.
One thing I just want to ask, you mentioned as you started that there were a few positives to take from today. What positives exactly would you take in particular from the performance?
Oh my! We dominated the game. The possession was unreal. We dominated the game really, really well. They were not even seeing the ball. They were not touching it. They would get the ball, would take it immediately away from them. There was that brief spell where they made 4 corner kicks of their own. That was the only time that they really threatened. That goal that they scored was kind of, if you ask me, was kind of like a fluke. I don't think it was really that. Anybody could have seen that coming.
So have you got to ask questions of us with all this possession? Have you got to ask questions of the fact that we didn't manage to get anything, not even a goal with all this possession we had? We didn't even manage to, I mean, of all the chances we had, we didn't really have anything massively clear cut in the entire game. With all the possession that we did have, we didn't really manage to break them down. Obviously, we've got quality players like Odegaard who can create, but today they just seemed like everyone just seemed to be off it.
Right. I agree with that. We probably should have done a little bit better, but I think it was just the way those guys came. They had planned for us, and they came ready to play negative football, to sit in a low block, and to just get what they wanted to get from that game. They were not out to play a game of any positive football, and Arsenal had come out to show the the stylish football that we were playing, but these guys were just kicking. You saw when Odegaard started. At the beginning of the game, they were just nipping away at his heels and they were kicking away at him. It was kind of like a rough and tumble game, which is what they were playing, just anti-football type of game. But I think the positive thing is that Arsenal has not lost its spot. That was still a dominating performance, even if they lost. It is just that these guys, it was 11 men behind the ball and then breakaway. In fact, even the goal that they scored was not even like a counter-attack or anything. It was from a dead ball situation. So at the end of the day, I think Arsenal really did well, but I understand where everybody's coming from. People are very, very upset. I get it. We shouldn't have been 3 points. We should have lost. But I still think in the coming weeks, we still have a chance to make up for this.
Yeah.
Obviously, the next team that's coming over next week is I guess they're going to suffer the brunt of Arsenal.
Well, let's hope we respond. Thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Well, that's it, everyone. Thank you to everyone who's called in. Thank you to everyone who's jumped in using AFTV FANZONE on the AFTV app. I do just want to say, to kind of wrap it up, I appreciate everyone's calls and opinions and how everyone sees the game. I have to say I love the way everyone's called in and largely been very positive about the position we're in, looking at the bigger picture, appreciating what went wrong. I don't think you can say we dominated. I think they dominated in terms of executing their game plan. I think their set piece was absolutely deserved because they looked dangerous from set pieces all game. And I think they deserved the win. We didn't deserve anything near. But what you can say is that Arsenal have a bounce back ability that we've seen at times this season from bad results and disappointments. Drawing at home to Newcastle could have been a little bit of a setback, but they go and beat Tottenham and Man United straight after. So let's see if Arsenal can put something together. Man City have been far from perfect. Arsenal don't have to be perfect. They just have to be better than City. Not the easiest thing to do, but Arsenal have been, in the 19 games before, I think you could have said that in all 19 games we either won or were the better team.
Yeah.
And in this is the only game where we've lost and there was no positive take from the performance. Yeah. So hopefully they just go back, regroup and go again.
Yeah, you win some, you lose some. Only annoying thing about today is obviously, being at the top of the league, that comes with a pressure, and you've got the whole world waiting for us. You've got the whole world preying on our downfall. And unfortunately today, the haters are happy, but we are still 5 points clear at the top of the Premier League.
Like I said, we've lost and dropped from first to first. So Arsenal and the players need to remember that. Let's move on to the next. It's Brentford at home next week. We'll be covering it all on AFTV, 3 o'clock kickoff. But of course, there'll be fallout from the game across the weekend on Monday as well. Tactical insight, biased, all of that. plenty of coverage of everything else going on around the team as well, so look out for that on the channel. All right, we're going to leave it there. A real big thanks to everyone who called in, because you guys make the show. It's your thoughts, your time and effort to call in and chat with us that is what makes it what it is, so we really appreciate it. It's therapeutic for me. I do feel better already having spoken to people. We take the positivity into the next game. Yes, we've lost, but Arsenal are in a very good position, and let's remember that. Many thanks. Big thanks to Dylan. Big thanks to Laurie and everyone who's joined. We'll catch you very soon.